Usually, when you look at a ledger or a balance sheet, there is this expectation of just pure, cold logic. Black is good, red is bad.
Right, it's a binary system.
Yeah, exactly. And it's actually pretty comforting because, well, the math just works. Society generally agrees on what is valuable and where it isn't. But today, we are throwing that ledger completely out the window. Welcome to this deep dive.
Glad to be here for it.
And to you listening right now, I want to start off by offering a warm, divine blessing for your day and the week ahead. May this conversation bring you real clarity on what truly matters when the math of our lives just doesn't seem to add up.
That's a beautiful way to start. It really is a great space to be in, exploring a text that fundamentally disrupts how we calculate value.
It really does. So we are getting into Luke chapter 16 today. And we're drawing from some really extensive notes in both the Holman and NAA study Bibles.
Two fantastic sources, by the way.
Oh, absolutely. And our mission today is to unpack some of Jesus's most startling, totally upside-down teachings regarding wealth, human value, and the afterlife.
Upside down is the perfect word for it.
Right. I mean, we are dealing with parables that have left readers scratching their heads for 2 millennia. And it's precisely because they challenge absolutely everything our culture tells us about success.
Which means we all need to keep an incredibly open mind today. Because, while we're talking about ancient Judea, agrarian economies, and first-century theology, these texts are really holding up a mirror to very modern struggles. We're talking about our relationship with our bank accounts, our hidden priorities, and honestly, how we interact with the invisible people we walk past every single day.
Yeah, that is so true. Well, let's jump right into the deep end, because to understand this radical view on wealth, we have to start with a story that, at least on a surface reading, feels almost scandalous.
Oh, it's definitely a controversial one.
Right. It is the parable of the shrewd manager. And the setup is basically this high-stakes corporate drama. You have a wealthy landowner who gets a tip that his manager, who is essentially his chief financial officer, a guy with total power of attorney, well, he's squandering the estate's assets.
Yeah.
And the manager gets caught red-handed. He's called in, told to hand over the books, and basically he's getting fired.
And the panic sets in immediately. This manager realizes his life as an elite white-collar worker is totally over.
Yeah, he's terrified.
He actually says to himself, I am not strong enough to do manual labor, and I am too proud to beg. He is staring down the barrel of total social and financial ruin.
So he orchestrates this frantic last-minute scheme. Before the firing is made public, he calls in all of his master's debtors. He sits down with a guy who owes 100 measures of olive oil and says, quick, rewrite your invoice, make it 50.
Just a massive discount.
Right. And then he pulls in a guy owing 100 measures of wheat and says, change it to 80. He is just aggressively slashing their debts. And his internal logic is like, if I save these guys a fortune right now, they'll owe me a massive favor and let me crash on their couches when I'm out on the street next week.
It is a breathtakingly desperate survival tactic. I mean, he is leveraging his last few hours of authority to manufacture a safety net.
But I have to push back here, because this is the part that always tricks me up. This is the exact equivalent of a soon-to-be-fired corporate executive logging into the company mainframe and giving massive unauthorized discounts to his favorite clients just to guarantee himself a job offer from them on Monday. And yet, the text says the master actually praises this guy.
Yeah, he praises him.
But are we supposed to read this and think Jesus is telling you and me to be dishonest to get ahead? Because that feels completely contradictory to literally everything else in the text.
It feels like a massive contradiction for sure, which is why it's arguably one of the most debated parables in history. But when you dig into the historical context provided by the study Bibles, the master's praise is highly specific.
Okay, how so?
He is absolutely not praising the manager's bad character or the fact that he was squandering money before. The praise is strictly for the man's prudence. It's like this reluctant admiration for his foresight.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the master is essentially saying, you are a scoundrel, but I have to admit, you are a clever scoundrel who knows how to prepare for the future.
But wait, isn't he still stealing from his boss one last time by slashing those debts? Or was there some kind of ancient accounting loophole he was exploiting?
That is the million-dollar question right there. Historical sources offer several incredibly plausible theories for what was actually happening on those invoices. It likely was an outright theft in that final moment.
So what was he cutting then? Was he just, eating his own commission?
That is actually one of the leading theories. As an agent, the manager would have tacked his own hefty fee onto the master's original loan.
Ah, well, no.
So by erasing that portion, he's legally sacrificing his own future payout to buy immediate goodwill. But there's another theory that suggests he was removing illegal interest.
Wait, illegal interest?
Yeah, under the Torah, charging usury, which is interest to a fellow Israelite, was strictly forbidden. But wealthy landowners routinely used loopholes to do it anyway, often disguising it in goods like wheat or oil.
Oh, wow. So if he cuts out the illegal interest, the master can't even be mad publicly without admitting he was breaking religious law in the first place.
You nailed it. The
Yeah.
manager forces his boss into a corner because the community is likely celebrating the master for his quote-unquote generosity in forgiving these debts.
Right.
If the master turns around and says, no, put the crippling interest back on, he loses immense social honor. And in an honor-shame culture, that's a huge deal.
Man, it's a brilliant trap. What are the other theories?
Well, he might have simply been lowering the total debt to secure quick liquid cash for the master. An angry boss might actually appreciate getting paid out immediately. Or the fourth theory is he was reducing a debt that he had artificially inflated in the first place.
Okay, I see.
But honestly, regardless of the specific accounting trick, the manager realizes his current access to resources is rapidly expiring, so he uses the temporary wealth he still controls to secure his permanent reality.
That completely reframes the entire story for me. The manager knows the money isn't really his,
Yeah.
and he knows he can't keep it. So instead of clinging to it, he weaponizes it to build relationships.
Exactly. Which brings us to the core lesson Jesus extracts from this. He notes that the sons of this world, meaning secular society, are often much more strategic, shrewd, and urgent about their earthly futures than the sons of light, or believers, are about their eternal futures.
That is a jarring wake-up call. Jesus is essentially saying to his followers, like, look at how hard this corrupt guy hustles to secure a comfortable retirement. Why aren't you hustling that hard to secure your spiritual future?
And he gives a very explicit directive on how to do that, too. He tells his audience to use unrighteous wealth, which is just a term for temporary earthly resources, to make friends for themselves, so that when it fails, they will be welcomed into eternal dwellings.
Notice he says, when it fails, not if it fails.
Right. Wealth is absolutely inevitable in its failure. You either lose it or you leave it behind when you die. The ultimate shrewd move is to take something temporary and perishable, like money, and invest it into something permanent, like human beings.
I love that concept. You're converting an expiring currency into an eternal one. But if Jesus is preaching that we should essentially give away our wealth to build community, that has to step on some major toes.
Oh, for sure.
Because the people listening to this didn't view money as an expiring currency at all. They viewed it as a divine scorecard.
It stepped on the biggest toes available. The primary audience reacting to this teaching are the Pharisees, and the historical context here is just crucial. The Bibles note that the Pharisees were highly influential religious leaders, but they were also avaricious.
Meaning they loved money.
They loved money.
And they didn't just quietly disagree either. The text says they openly scoffed at him. They were literally mocking him while he was speaking.
Yeah, the Greek word used for their mockery is visceral. It literally means to turn up the nose or to sneer. They operated on this twisted version of Deuteronomic theology where wealth was the ultimate proof of God's blessing.
So rich equals blessed.
Exactly. If you were rich, God loved you. If you were poor, you were clearly cursed due to some hidden sin. So to hear this itinerant rabbi say that earthly wealth was just unrighteous mammon meant to be given away, they thought he was a total fool.
But Jesus hits back, and he hits back hard. He doesn't soften the message to win them over at all. He looks at these respected leaders and says, you justify yourselves before men, but God knows your hearts. And then he drops a statement that honestly should probably be hung on the wall of every financial institution today. He says, what is highly elevated among humans is an abomination to God.
It is a devastating surgical strike on their entire value system. He tells them it is a physical and spiritual impossibility to serve two masters. You will always hate one and love the other. You cannot serve God and mammon.
I think we really need to pause on the word mammon for a second. We usually just treat that as like an old-timey synonym for a dollar bill.
Well,
but it feels much heavier than that in this context.
It is much heavier. Mammon is personified here. It is treated as a rival deity, an idol that demands total allegiance. When wealth becomes mammon, it stops being a tool and becomes a master.
Wow.
And the distinction in the study notes is incredibly stark. If you serve God, you use your money to help people. If you serve mammon, you use people to get more money.
Man, when you put it like that, this isn't just an ancient critique of some Pharisees. This is a direct, uncomfortable challenge to our modern hustle culture.
Oh, absolutely it is.
We live in a society where net worth is inextricably linked to human worth. Someone is a billionaire, society automatically assumes they are inherently smarter or more disciplined or just more worthy of a platform. We exalt them.
Yeah, we do.
But Jesus is saying that the relentless pursuit of that status, when it becomes the master of your life, is quite literally an abomination. It is sickening to God.
It completely flips the ledger, and Jesus frames this conflict within a massive tectonic shift in human history. The text notes him explaining that the law and the prophets, basically the old era, lasted until John the Baptist. But now something entirely new is happening.
The gospel of the kingdom of God is being preached.
Right.
And he says everyone is forcing their way into it. That's such a strange phrasing to me.
Yeah.
What does it mean to force your way into the kingdom?
Well, the underlying language involves exerting intense spiritual effort or being forcefully urged. It isn't a casual Sunday stroll kind of entry.
It takes work.
The arrival of the kingdom brings a crisis of decision. You have to actively and perhaps even painfully break free from the world's gravity, from the love of mammon to enter this new reality. It requires a radical realignment of your priorities.
But I imagine the Pharisees hearing this would accuse Jesus of just tearing up the rule book. If the era of the law is over, does that mean anything goes?
Exactly the opposite, actually. Jesus anticipates that critique. He tells them it is easier for heaven and earth to pass away than for one stroke of a letter of the law to fail.
Oh, well, okay.
And to prove his point, he immediately pivots to the strictness of God's moral law. He specifically brings up divorce and adultery right there. He is showing them that God's moral standards haven't been abolished.
So the standard is actually higher.
Exactly. If anything, the kingdom demands a deeper, more profound obedience from the heart, not just a superficial checklist of rules that allows you to hoard wealth while claiming to be righteous.
So he dismantles their theology, exposes their greed, and proves he isn't abandoning God's law. But abstract theology only goes so far, and Jesus knows that. So he shifts gears and tells a story.
And it is arguably one of the most vivid, haunting stories in all of ancient literature.
It really is. It's the story of the great reversal, the rich man and Lazarus.
And it paints the contrast between these two men with extreme, almost cinematic intensity.
It is entirely sensory. You have this rich man. Tradition later named him Dives, which is just Latin for rich. He is clothed in purple and fine linen. Now, in the ancient world, purple dye came from sea snails, right?
Yeah, it was astronomically expensive.
He is literally wearing a fortune, and he is feasting in ostentatious luxury every single day.
He is the pinnacle of the world's ledger. He has won the game of life.
But then the camera pans down to the dirt outside his gate, and there lies Lazarus.
A beggar.
He is covered in ulcers and sores. He is starving, hoping just for the scraps of bread that fall from the rich man's table.
It's just a brutal image.
And to add insult to injury, the text says the street dogs would come and lick his wounds. And these weren't like cute pets. These were wild, unclean scavengers. It is a portrait of utter, helpless degradation.
And there is a brilliant, really subtle detail here about how society views value versus how God views it. Notice their names.
Yes, I love this part. In the real world, the rich man would be the center of attention. Everyone in town would know his name, his lineage, his entire business portfolio.
Absolutely.
But the beggar bleeding by the gate would be entirely invisible. People would step over him without a second thought. But in Jesus' story, the reversal starts immediately.
Because the rich man is completely nameless.
Right, he is just a certain rich man.
Mm-hmm.
But the invisible beggar is given a name, and not just any name, Lazarus.
Which means God helps. In the eternal ledger, the man society deemed a worthless liability is the one whose name is known, recorded, and dignified.
So inevitably, the ledger closes for both of them. They both die, and the afterlife brings an absolute shocking reversal. Lazarus is carried by angels to Abraham's side, which is sometimes translated as Abraham's bosom.
Yeah, that phrase, Abraham's bosom, refers to the place of honor at a banquet. Think about that. In life, Lazarus couldn't even get the crumbs from a table. In eternity, he is seated at the right hand of the patriarch of the faith, experiencing blessed communion and comfort.
But the rich man experiences a very different reality. He goes to Hades, and he is in torment, surrounded by flame.
And to understand this, we have to look at how the ancient world viewed Hades. In this specific context, it isn't the final hell, but a temporary holding place for the unrighteous dead.
Oh, I see.
It's a place of conscious, immediate suffering prior to the final judgment. The man who had everything first is now completely last.
But this is where the story gets incredibly dark, and frankly, where the human psychology is just stunning to me. Because even while this rich man is in agony, burning in Hades, he looks across this vast spiritual divide. He sees Abraham and he sees Lazarus sitting there in comfort. And the rich man yells out, "Father Abraham, have mercy on me and send Lazarus to dip the end of his finger in water and cool my tongue." I mean, think about the sheer arrogance.
It's unbelievable.
He is in torment, and he is still treating Lazarus like an errand boy.
It is a profound observation. It shows the depth of his spiritual sickness. His physical geography has changed, but his heart hasn't shifted an inch.
Not at all.
He still views himself as the VIP. He still doesn't see Lazarus as a fellow human being bearing the image of God. He sees him only as an instrument to relieve his own discomfort.
He hasn't learned a single thing. He still thinks the universe revolves around his needs. But Abraham shuts that down completely.
Abraham responds with a terrifying truth. He calls him child, acknowledging his Jewish heritage, but reminds him of the facts. He says, "In your lifetime you received your good things, and Lazarus in like manner bad things, but now he is comforted here, and you are in anguish."
And then he drops the hammer.
He does. Abraham explains that their destinies are now permanently, immovably fixed. There is a great chasm. The Greek word is chasma, an abyss fixed between them. No one can cross from one side to the other.
The physical gap in the afterlife just mirrors the social gap the rich man created during his life. He built a gate to keep Lazarus out. Now God has built a chasm to keep him out.
That is exactly it. The time to bridge the gap was while they were both breathing. Once the ledger closes, the math is final.
So, realizing he is completely doomed, the rich man finally pivots. He stops asking for water and says, "Okay, then I beg you, Father, to send him to my father's house, for I have 5 brothers, so that he may warn them, lest they also come into this place of torment."
Which on the surface sounds like he finally cares about someone other than himself.
Right. It sounds like a noble, almost redemptive request.
But it actually reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of how the human heart operates. Abraham refuses. He says, "They have Moses and the prophets. Let them hear them."
Meaning the scriptures.
Exactly. They already have the scriptures. They already have the law telling them to care for the poor, the widow, the orphan, and the alien. The instructions are already in their hands.
But the rich man argues with Abraham. He says, "No, Father Abraham. If someone goes to them from the dead, they will repent." He is convinced that what his brothers need isn't more scripture. He thinks they need a supernatural spectacle.
A ghost story?
Yeah, a flashy miracle to shock them into changing their lives.
And this brings us to the absolute core meaning of the parable and really the whole chapter. Abraham delivers the final chilling word. If they do not hear Moses and the prophets, neither will they be convinced if someone should rise from the dead.
Man, that line hits so hard.
It synthesizes the entire message. If someone's heart is deeply hardened by the love of mammon, if they can step over a starving, bleeding human being at their own front gate every single day and feel absolutely nothing.
A miracle won't fix it?
No, a supernatural light show is not going to cure them. A miracle cannot fix a deliberate lack of compassion.
Because they don't have an information problem. They have a worship problem.
Precisely. And there is an incredible layer of historical irony here, pointed out in the study Bibles. The Gospel of Luke was written after Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection. Jesus literally did rise from the dead.
Oh, wow.
And yet, the religious leaders who loved money, the ones who scoffed at his teachings, they still refused to believe. Our resurrection didn't change their minds because their hearts were already pledged to a different master.
It is a terrifying reality check on human nature. We love to convince ourselves that we would change if we just had more proof, more data, or some undeniable sign from the universe.
We see that all the time.
But true repentance isn't about getting new information. It's a complete realignment of your ledger. It means taking the people you previously treated as invisible or useful only for your own gain and treating them with the dignity of someone whose name is known by God.
That's the whole point.
And this brings us to the end of this deep dive. But I want to leave you, the listener, with a final provocative thought to chew on. Notice how the story ends. The rich man mentions his 5 brothers, but we never find out what happens to them.
The parable just stops abruptly.
Yeah, the camera basically cuts to black. And why? Because you are the brothers. We are the brothers. We are the ones still living, still holding our ledgers, still making daily choices about what we worship and who we ignore.
We have the time right now to bridge the gap.
Exactly. So the question you have to ask yourself this week is this. How often are you waiting for a miracle or a dramatic sign to finally change your habits, your generosity, or your priorities when the exact instructions for how to live are already right in front of you?
They're right there in the text.
We spend so much time looking for writing in the sky, while the person who desperately needs our unrighteous wealth is sitting right at our gate. It all comes back to that ledger. Are we hoarding what is guaranteed to fail, or are we investing in what actually lasts?
That's the question we all have to answer.
Thank you so much for joining us as we explore this ancient yet deeply urgent material. As we close the books on today's conversation, I want to say one more time, God blesses all the listeners. Take a look at your ledger, take care of the people at your gate, and we will see you next time.